Welcome back, everybody, to the League of Legends World Championship here live from Taipei, as I am joined here by someone who is no stranger to the international stage. It is, of course, TSM's owner, Reginald. Well, this time you're not playing, at least you're on the stage.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been an amazing experience coming here and just seeing everyone, seeing all the fans just welcome us really warmly. So just like thanks to the fans for coming out and cheering us on. Yeah,
they definitely have your back. Talk me through what is going on leading up to this World Championship. You guys obviously went to Korea to scrim. How did that pan out? What kind of weaknesses of your team or maybe strengths did you discover over there?
So initially when we went to Korea, we thought that we were going to be way far behind. And when we played the Korean teams, they were really good. But individually, right, they don't really destroy lanes as what we expected. But their team play is just absolutely crazy. And that's what we're having trouble most with. And throughout the last 2 weeks, we've been playing a lot of games against the Korean teams, and we've only gotten better and better. And so the gap is closing. And so it's just been a really good experience going to Korea, boot camping there, looking at their infrastructure and just seeing how they do things so we can mimic it and copy it in our own way. And when we go back to the US, we can train with that regiment and just make us better overall as an NA scene.
Oh, fantastic. Well, obviously you guys came out of the NA playoffs with a fantastic win over Cloud9. Does that momentum still carry on, or through that experience in Korea where you maybe grounded a bit?
So, I mean, just going to PAX, like every single match was like a game of inches. We barely beat LMQ, we barely beat C9, and after the finals, we knew that we needed work and we wanted to do well at Worlds. And so the momentum kind of died down when we went to Korea, but we knew that we could get better. And as we played the Korean teams, we just stayed positive. We kept practicing every single day, and we're going into groups right now very confident.
Well, you say you're going into the groups very confident. I might almost say that this might be the best setup TSM has had yet to do good in groups. So what is your general impressions of your opponents?
So, I mean, overall, like you said, every single Worlds thus far for TSM, I feel like this Worlds is our best chance of going far and even maybe like going to the finals and winning it. And so these groups, I feel like we have a really good shot at coming out and taking first. We have hard opponents, TPA, SK, and Royal. I think that World's going to give us a run for our money.
All right, well, you got to start by winning off the first game here versus SK. Tell me your general view on the game and where they maybe could beat you guys out.
So with SK, I feel like our team has the advantage, player for player. In every single role, I'm confident that my players are better than them for every single role. But SK has really good team synergy. They come very prepared. And even at the EU LCS playoffs, Alliance has a better roster. Other players are really mechanically strong. But SK showed up. Their strategy was really good. They have good level ones. They come in with a solid plan, and they were able to carry that out. And they barely lost Alliance. So when we're playing these matches, we're coming in fully prepared as well. We're going to just do everything we can to just win the match.
All right, fantastic. Well, good luck, Reggie, and thank you.
Thank you, too.
All right, it's time to head back over to the guys at the analyst desk to get things started.
Thank you very much, Sharks, and great hearing from Reggie. We are about to kick off our next game, a good old-fashioned fight between North America and European LCS regions. It's Team SoloMid taking on SK Gaming. TSM have the honor of being the only team to play in all 4 World Championships, but this year they also had the distinction to be the first team to break Cloud9's hold on the North American League, defeating them at the playoffs to take the Summer Championship and that #1 seed. It took a full year of roster swaps, adding support staff, and also really scraping through those playoffs. But it worked, and TSM have the highest seed. Crumbs, your opinion?
Going into the playoffs for NA, TSM, the one that we saw there, was completely different from the one we saw in the entire summer split. Like, they added Lustboy at last resort. Everybody thought it was a really risky move, and it worked out for them. They've shown that they can adapt really quickly and just become better when they really have to. They've been doing this for a while now, and they showed up at the playoffs in the LCS studio, and they did it again at PAX. And every game that they've played, they've shown that they're becoming a better team. Now, when they're going to Korea and boot camp and they say that they've become a better team every time, scrimming versus Koreans, their infrastructure becomes better, their whole team synergy becomes better. I believe it fully. So going into this, I'm really curious to see and just try to kind of compare what they're doing here to what we saw perhaps from Samson White last game.
Yeah, Lustboy has really taken a good fit into this team as well. I mean, I casted him for a long time in Korea, and his vision control has brought a lot. But as they've kind of changed out the players, like Crumbs is talking about here, we have to also mention the infrastructure developments that they've had. I mean, if we're realistic, the picks and bans at the beginning of the season for TSM were often a disaster, but since the addition of Loco Doco, they've really improved strategically, and a lot of it is due to his game knowledge and the knowledge he brings in from a Korean team. He understands some of these coaching methods that were taught to him when he was a pro player in Korea, and I think he brings a lot and adds a lot of value.
Yeah, just in addition to that, just day-to-day life, having Loco Doco being bilingual definitely will help. I mean, we play with a Korean in our house as well, and there is language barriers and culture barriers. For example, like we had to explain Gilius what sarcasm was because he didn't even know. So, but I'm pretty sure Loco Doco is well versed in the art of sarcasm already, so he could definitely help them. They made sure Lustboy was always speaking English and only Korean where needed, and I think that's really good for TSM, and that indicates how well and how quickly they grow as a team. So I'm definitely looking forward to how much they learn from the...
A lot of positivity,
sure.
but I know Freak is a little concerned about some things in TSM.
So TSM, it's still a very big test for them. This is a tough group. There's a lot of individually very strong players up against them. I think that they do outmatch SK role for role. Again, what Reggie said, I think that is pretty much true here, that the roster swaps have helped that significantly. But the difficulty is that I think, except for maybe against Royal Club, they're outmatched strategically in this group. I think every other team has better shot calling, especially with the fact that Bjergsen is actually a reluctant shot caller here. He wants to just kind of do what Xiao does, which is be silent and just go 1v1 people and let someone else take over. Amazing talks during the early game, but Bjergsen takes over late, and it breaks his concentration a little bit here, and it's just a bit of uncomfortability for that team. And keeping up against SK Gaming, who's one of the best strategic teams in Europe, which is already a strategically pretty sound region, is a test for TSM.
And it's going to be a big test for SK Gaming because they've been made uncomfortable because of the fact they have that roster swap in the jungle, thanks to Sven Skeren's suspension, unfortunately. Before the suspension happened, Monte Cristo, you had touted them to potentially be a top 2 team in this group. They need to adjust, they need to adapt on the fly. How are they going to handle TSM without one of the biggest components of their early game in Sven Skeren?
I think that's a really tough question because Sven Skeren is so key to SK's strategy, because the way that SK likes to play the League of Legends is they like to push all 3 lanes at the same time and then have Sven Skeren go and try and 1v1 the enemy jungle or counter jungle very heavily. Now, I don't know if Gilius is going to be really up to that task. It's a very different kind of jungle style, but maybe SK can hold it together. Maybe they can maintain that kind of oddball style that's kept them kind of on the forefront and really gave Alliance a run for their money in the European playoffs.
Couple of things I want to go into is both champion pools for Jesiz and nRated. I know Jesiz isn't really that typical assassin player. He plays a good Ahri, but I'm sure TSM has done their research and Bjergsen alone knows how to handle these Ahri. So I'm wondering if he's going to be on the same level when Bjergsen start playing Zed, when Bjergsen start playing Talon. At the other side of the map, on the support side, nRated, he plays a lot of these niche picks, and if you look at his solo queue stats, he had a lot of Alistar, then it switched to Vel'Koz. I mean, I barely saw a Thresh game in there. Obviously, I don't know what he's scrimming with. But yeah, I do hope he has the basics prepared before he switches to niche picks, because otherwise that would indicate that he's just not at the same level as Lustboy.
Well, we are about to find out. Guys, it is time to put you in the hot seat. Brush off your crystal balls. Which team is going to come out on top? We're going to run this one down the line once again. Crepo, prediction, winner, TSM or SK?
Yeah, well, I have TSM for my plausible first. I hope I don't regret that decision, so TSM.
Crumbs?
Well, you know, before the suspension, I would have perhaps thought that SK could give them a run for their money, but now I'm going to have to go with TSM for sure.
I think this was always going to be a very close matchup, and I still have to think TSM's going to come out here with the suspension. SK, this group has kind of been broken up into 3 teams and unlikely SK. So TSM, I think, is the obvious choice.
I think TSM has a really good shot as well. That's my pick. But the question does stand that many of these players haven't actually played at Worlds yet. So maybe that actually shakes these guys up. You never know. SK is green as well, to be completely fair on this one. But sometimes just teams don't show up properly at Worlds. And that could always just change things around. But I think TSM is the favorite.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that's an important note to remember. Let's compare the fan protections. According to LOLesports.com, 84% of you guys
what a surprise.
think that TSM will take the win. Yeah, I don't think too many people. That's a great amount of support. Guys, before we head to this match, TSM tells us what it means to carry the hopes of the North American LCS onto the global stage of the World Championship.
It's pretty special to be here at Worlds. Like, you play the whole season just for this moment, and it means everything to you. I was there watching all through the groups to the final last year, just spectating, and I just really wanted to be on that stage, and this is my chance.
For our group stage and judging from the other LCS teams, yeah, we're probably carrying the hopes of the LCS.
I would say we're the hope of the Western region right now.
Me and Bjergsen obviously from EU to NA, so we unite basically NA and EU and try to show that we're capable of beating Koreans and basically beating other regions.
If we don't do well, then fans are going to feel like other teams that didn't manage to get here could have done better than us. So there is pressure on us, but it's also up to us to relieve that pressure and just play like we would usually.
It's the biggest stage I've ever been on, and it's basically the last chance in this season to prove our worth.
Well, we're about to see what TSM can and be put to the test as they come up in their next match, or their first match, I should say. Let's get right to it with a quick look at the starting lineups. On the blue side, it's going to be Team SoloMid. In the top lane, it's Dyrus. In the jungle, it's amazing. Bjergsen in the mid lane, WildTurtle at AD carry, and Lustboy, always on support.
And of course, on the red side, it is SK Gaming. That means in the top lane, it is Freddy122. Coming in as substitute is Gilius in the jungle, Jesiz in the mid lane, CandyPanda as the AD carry, and alongside him is nRated as support.
And something about SK is even whenever they made it in the LCS, they're just constantly underestimated. SK, they barely made it in. How could they possibly have a good split? They take second place in spring. Oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. They get this huge slump in the middle of the year, and they come back again. Now they have suspension. They're playing with a sub. Everyone completely counts them out. Never count SK out. They're actually an incredibly heady bunch, and they do know how to play together.
Yeah, one of the things SK has had throughout the entire season is they will generally lose the lane phase, but they always manage to pull together as a team and somehow manage to hang on, work the way back into it, and pick up the wins. And it's just one of those things throughout the entire season. We've been vexed by exactly how it works.
That's the tricky thing, though, because over on the other side of the pond, TSM, when they win the laning phase, they almost never lose. That's one of the big reasons they pick strong laning champions, and just the way they play. It's a very conservative style, actually. When they lose, they actually barely lose because they slowly get bled out and they're afraid to make moves. That's why when they do have the lane victories, they slowly win in the same fashion. So as far as a matchup goes, this is very heavily in TSM's favor because of the lanes.
Well, Bjergsen calling the shots with amazing on the side of Team SoloMid. That's Freddy's job. Team captain over on the side of SK Gaming. And something we'll have to note for Team SoloMid throughout the entire tournament is a Nidalee ban that's going to have to go down.
Well, they banned Nidalee in 14 of their 14 NALCS playoff games, and they're not going to be picking it up for Worlds. I think that's pretty clear. That is just a ban used every single game, a definite weakness in TSM's overall strategy they're going to have to overcome.
Yeah, and it's an absolutely needed one because Freddy would quite happily pick that up. Kale also banned out, and that you may be thinking is towards Jesiz or Freddy, but no, it could well be nRated. He's played as support 3 times throughout the season. Zed, of course, focused towards Bjergsen. The big one for me, though, is Syndra going to be banned? SK have let this one through before, despite the fact in Europe they know the champions in that mid lane, big players like Froggen, like Peke, can play it well, just like Bjergsen can, but they're happy to go up against it. Aatrox for targeted towards Freddy. That's going to put Freddy uncomfortable, and there is the Syndra ban.
Definite target banning. However, I think the big reason they banned Syndra there is they would have loved to ban Alistar or Maokai, but if you're not going to be able to control them, you just have to be able to trade them back and forth. Dyrus picking Alistar, I expect Maokai to come back on the other side.
Ooh, awesome pickups to start. The cow does get through in game 2. As we go through the group stages, Freddy and Gilius now to pick up. Eyes on Gilius as well. Consider him to be an impact here to come in for the team if he can continuously play as Svenskeren did. Like they said, a little bit of counter jungling, but will he fall into that style?
It's a fair bit of pressure. He was just in a pretty pressure-packed situation, actually, on Unicorns of Love. He qualified for the LCS. He ends up picking Kha'Zix, which is something Svenskeren actually was 6-1 on the playoffs with, so he's really just trying to fill his shoes, not change anything strategically for SK. They didn't rely on jungle shot calling to begin with. Most of their shot calling comes from Freddy122 in the top lane, so maybe they can just pull off their normal strategies here.
It does, of course, mean that Lee Sin has snuck through. 17 bans against him, amazing in that mid lane. Of course, back in the Copenhagen Wolves in Europe Spring, he was one of those top champions as well, so he's managed to rock this champion throughout the entire season, be it in Europe or North America. And against the European team, it should work well for him. Alongside him, of course, Nami picked up for Lustboy, someone that's come in for TSM and absolutely done incredible things.
Yeah, no surprises on TSM side, just picking the big-time champions. A surprise on the SK side,
yeah.
though. Yeah.
Locking down the zone, very nice coming in for nRated. They said he's got to make his champion pool bigger.
All right, so we've seen a little bit of Sona play. It's been patchy throughout. Some Chinese teams are actually playing it. LGD Gaming. Obviously, nRated is also a type of person who used to rely on Sona occasionally. It is the new Sona updated. If they're able to group up and if TSM doesn't have a lot of AoE, it's a little better. However, they're playing it against Alistair, Nami, and then whatever else TSM decides to throw at them. It is a vulnerable pick in the laning phase, a squishy champion, but if Sona does get ahead, I very much respect her power. I'm not that surprised to see her at Worlds.
I am surprised to see Mundo picked up instead of Maokai in there, so that's something that has switched across for Freddy. Going to see how that works out. Of course, Ari's still on the table, but we're going to wait to see whether these Yasuo does get locked in for Bjergsen, and of course, WildTurtle on Tristana, no surprises.
That team synergizes amazingly if they lock it in. Everybody can prep Bjergsen for the knockup of Last Breath, and it is locked in. A lot of top-tier picks coming from Team SoloMid.
One thing that TSM likes to do frequently, instead of counter-picking matchups, is to pick entire team comps. And this is very similar to the Yasuo compositions they ran throughout the regular season when they would go for Yasuo. The only difference is they would run Lulu in the top lane, but they have a monster in there with the cow as well. So every single person on that team can contribute to Yasuo's ultimate, giving Bjergsen every single option he wants as far as which target to go for, and really trying to set him up to carry.
Going back to that Mundo, these only been once Freddy has played that in the entire summer. So it's definitely a turnaround, and we wondered that with the bans coming in, the Nidalee, the Aatrox, targeted towards him. Has that put Freddy in an uncomfortable position? Dyrus up against him. We'll see how it works out for him.
It's true, one of the big stories that we need to follow here is whether or not Dyrus can neutralize Freddy and kind of take him off of his game. As a shot-calling top laner, if you're struggling in your own lane, you're not going to be able to make very many good initiation plays. Also, Mundo himself isn't a very good initiator. It will be kind of difficult for SK to find the right type of plays throughout the map.
Well, with the match about to get underway, we'd like to turn our attention to Twitter. Tell us who you think will score first blood. Use the hashtags TSMWin or hashtag SKWin. And of course, we'll send your tweets to @LOL Esports. We'll check them out as we get the game underway. Here are the teams, here are the champions. What do we think here?
Well, a little bit of sustain in the bot lane is the one thing that I think. Not necessarily a huge lead here for Tristana. If they can land a few big-time bubbles, it will be very interesting to see whether nRated can stay alive. I think that bottom lane is potentially the weak point. Potentially the weak point of TSM. WildTurtle has struggled massively in laning phase near the end of the North American season, and he needs to pick it up for Worlds.
And here we are, Game 2. Coming out of Group B for this one. TSM versus SK Gaming. As we said, Gilius stepping in for Svenskeren throughout this. And we are going to see the game underway.
Well, one thing I never thought I'd hear in Taipei
there you go,
is the TSM chant. Clearly the home favorites here.
Perhaps, yeah.
Taiwan, who knows?
Coming out right away. So one thing that's always intrigued me about SK is they're the team that is all right with taking breaks, but they'll come back a little weaker than they usually do, and even did so coming into Worlds, but it's kind of a stop the burnout factor for them.
It's one of those teams, we talk about their sports psychologists frequently, but during the summer split, when they were slumping, when they came out of the slump, CandyPanda was very upfront about it. He said, we slumped because we were slacking off. We weren't practicing as much because we didn't want to burn out before the end of the season. They started grinding near the end of the season. They made it back in the playoffs. They gave Alliance a great run in the semifinals. Many people think SK was actually the second best team in Europe after playoffs. Of course, all of that changes with the Gilius substitution in the jungle right now. But it definitely has to be noted. Maybe they're going to be more fresh than other teams.
Yeah, and the Gilius substitution is obviously a big point in this one. But you would say, despite the fact he's a fresh-faced kid coming into this one, thrown into the World Championships, completely wouldn't have expected that. It was a challenger team not too long ago. He has performed brilliantly on Unicorns of Love. You cannot deny it. However, it is a very different team. That's all about supporting Power of Evil in the mid lane. Can he do the same with Jesiz? Jesiz is a completely different player to Power of Evil. Power of Evil will carry games and Gilius will support him. And I gotta wonder, with Freddy being the shot caller, whether he's just gonna pull him towards that top lane or maybe down the bottom.
Well, you usually get the regular lane of Jesiz kind of farming, being by himself. He didn't get a lot of attention from Stückenschneider either.
Yeah, hopefully for SK, they have enough confidence to let him make his own decisions. Because as soon as you start bossing a jungler around, you completely neutralize them as a player.
So down the bottom, immediate aggression. Will we see some level 2 plays from either of these teams? TSM playing it cautiously. Back towards the tower, CandyPanda shoving the wave in alongside nRated. It's been a long time since we saw Sona down in this bottom lane.
I'm ready for it. I was watching a whole bunch of LGD games, and their support would often pair it with Graves, and they had a lot of success in the laning phase. The damage output, when they get both people in that new Q snuggle zone, they can get a whole bunch of damage when they decide to go for a trade.
Giving out all the hugs to start off the game. Looks like pretty on par for both junglers here as they start. We may get treatment for the bottom lane from both if they decide to go straight there. A lot of pressure in this game. We talk about pressure for Dyrus and being able to perform here. Did quite well in the playoffs for Team SoloMid. Also talk about Jesiz, who's talked about his confidence kind of being shaken. And he's quoted himself as that.
I have to really wonder what's going to happen in this mid lane. Bjergsen is just so good in the mid lane. And obviously, Jesiz is not the most hyped mid laner. He just kind of has to get by. He's usually pretty consistent as well. This is a tough one, though.
Yeah, looks like Bjergsen's trying to set him up here, trying to force him off to the left-hand side. Amazing, ready and waiting to go, but doesn't look like he's taking the bait right now. Jesiz going pretty deep on this one. He's in trouble. Can they get him down? Manages to dodge the Sonic Wave Ignite. Was also used. Heal flash by Jesiz. Summoner spells burnt on both sides, but Jesiz is safe for now.
Gotta say, my boy's very impressed when an early level 3 Yasuo can get off that attack. You already have the wall or the Q up. They know it's coming. Jesiz had to blow the flash.
Really nice move there by Bjergsen. Obviously fairly aggressive. If Gilius would have been there for a counter gank, it would have been rather dangerous. Amazing also burned his flash. So at the end of the day, it is a 2-for-2 summoner trade. Not actually that great of a thing for TSM.
Bottom lane still quite back and forth. More pressure in the mid lane. Jesiz is going to get a bit of attention from Gilius. So it's going to be different for them, but he is still going to play it safe and not show that Gilius is there. Good control by them.
This is tricky, I feel. Bjergsen well aware of the fact that if Jesiz is being that aggressive, that far up the lane, he knows there is Gilius waiting in the wings just off the side there. He calls in the reinforcements. Amazing waiting there. Doesn't look like we're going to see some play, but Jesiz may well get caught out again here. Pulls defensive ball, will get knocked up. Here they go. Sonic Wave does catch this time around. First blood is coming. It's amazing that gets it for TSM.
That mid lane jungle synergy brought all the way over from Europe. Definitely starting to work out even more for TSM. Every single game, they seem to get better. Bjergsen now level 5 and should punish Jesiz with no summoners.
And it's great. History repeats itself for TSM. Ooh, top lane Dyrus getting a little roughed up there by Freddy.
I talked to a lot of people about Alistar in the top lane, and I was actually one person that was of the opinion that you can manage him, especially with a Mundo. If you can somehow sustain through him, Doran Shield, Freddy with a lot of health regen as well. You remove his ability to out-harass you with Headbutt, and then you start turning around with more damage in teamfights. It definitely feels like Freddy is ready for this one. That's why they didn't pick Maokai, because they wanted that matchup.
And one thing that always catches you out as a player is, of course, the fact that Alistar, without the ultimate, is squishy in all things. You think you're this big, giant tank. Without items, you can be handled. Freddy returns, teleport used by both top laners to come back in there, and they immediately go straight back at it, going straight in with that headbutt.
Freddy almost certainly has health regen runes in that top lane. Currently with the Giant Spell, he's at 49 health regen per 5 seconds. He's really going to be able to withstand that Dyrus headbutt, and it's basically a neutralized farm lane. There is no bully potential from Dyrus in that lane anymore.
Amazing. Looks like he wants to get Freddy a little bit of aggression here in the top lane. Jesiz trying to keep himself safe there, and it looks like Freddy's going to have a little bit of trouble. Amazing, slowly waiting on the outside. Gilius nowhere near this one.
They're trying to go before Freddy has his ultimate, but he's still pretty tanky.
Is he going to be tanky enough? Flashes out, Sonic Wave catches on, but he can just walk away from this one, as you mentioned, with that giant belt on him.
Yeah.
It's no problem for him. One thing that has happened, though, Jesiz forced back to lane early on there. Had to go and respect it. Goes for the cloth armor.
Fantastic pickup there by Freddy. Almost nullifies the fact that you can dive that Mundo before 6 and get him down. I like it a lot. Back down to the bottom lane. CandyPanda is really using a lot of that mana to get himself in range as WildTurtle and Lustboy continue the harass from this lane that has come so far this season for Team SoloMid.
Both are very close to level 6 right now. You can see they're sizing each other up, seeing who can land it. Will it be the wave? Will it be the crescendo that starts things off? Of course, Dragon could easily follow. This is the right time. The junglers are up in the top half of the jungle, so it's both a straight-up duel between these two. nRated taking some damage. It's TSM that you would feel are in the stronger position right now, but that crescendo in the right point can be critical.
They still have WildTurtle on Trist. If they can get him out of the laning phase unscathed, it's a huge boon for TSM. Even when he was getting beaten in laning phase, he was still having good team fights with Trist, and they're going even actually down bottom.
Gilius back to the mid lane, just for a cross, making sure Amazing isn't trying to make a return pass, but it looks like TSM is happy with that first kill they got here. It's going to definitely give them a spike if they go for that first fight, but they're going to have to be careful. It is a great fight team coming from SK. More pressure to the bottom lane here. No shots on either turret yet, but you can just see how dominant WildTurtle is on that Tristana.
Tricky stuff in this bottom lane. Level 6, imminent between the two. Junglers are down in the lower half of the jungle, and Dyrus, he is on a warpath.
This is the Alistair dive. He can't do anything to Freddy, so why not go mid for Jesiz?
Right into the wall, will stop him up for a little bit longer. The synergy comes in from the Mad Cow. Jesiz ignited, Jesiz is down.
The only way Jesiz lives through that is if he flashes while Dyrus is trying to headbutt him. He does not, he gets displaced. Bjergsen ults on top. It is a systematic, well-executed gank by TSM.
And the blue also being stolen away by Amazing. He took his own, now he's going to take theirs, and that's a big problem for Jesiz. He needed to get hold of that. He needs to try to keep up with Bjergsen. You can see the CS difference is starting to become huge between them, and he knew that coming into this game that Bjergsen versus Jesiz was going to be a critical point. And now we're going to get a 3v2 dive on bottom.
It's in a ward though. Gilius will try and counter gank this one, but Amazing goes it.
Oh, not quite going to land it. CandyPanda. Gilius tries to react, comes across, catches the crescendo on Amazing, and that is the first kill for SK. That was right on the point, the edge of the crescendo, but nRated landed it.
What a spectacular shot right there by nRated. Doesn't even have to burn flash. Definitely well practiced on Sona. That's exactly what SK needed to just stay survived in this game. Gilius has been completely outmatched by Amazing up until that point where the ward of the bottom lane and the crescendo of the bottom lane is able to help him out against the enemy jungler.
Another Giant's belt coming in for Freddy here. Looks like he's got to keep his pants up a little bit more. This lane definitely going to be a long fight lane if it goes down to it. We see the Triforce already coming out here for Dyrus. Things getting crazy up there.
Yeah, and I wonder if that Amazing play would have pulled off. That would have been a Dragon for TSM, I feel, but it's definitely put stops on that one. It's delayed it for a while. We talked about SK's weak laning phase. It is very much showing right here. The mid lane, of course, big, strong, dominant force. WildTurtle on Tristana. If he can get going on that ahead of Illusion, it is a win in lane phase regardless. The top lane, big difference in farm, but Dyrus has already roamed. He's already got himself that assist.
Everything TSM has used has been towards Bjergsen, and that's really their power point right now. He's got a 2-level advantage onto Jesiz. I suppose SK is trying to come back by just building multiples of the same items, double giant spell, triple longsword. At this point, they're still in a little bit of trouble though because Bjergsen is very powerful.
Could be difficult. However, if Amazing continues to make aggressive plays, it will give them small windows to come back. Will he check the brush? Possibly not, but another ward goes down. They're pre-warding these to make sure they have consistent vision throughout the jungle.
Gilius spotted out by that ward of TSM. There's the Cullen being used. WildTurtle healed straight up by Lustboy. No problems there. Double buff still on CandyPanda, remember, from that earlier gank by Amazing. That's about to wear off. Gilius, a little bit of counter jungling here, but Amazing. He's creeping around the back of Jesiz, but he's spotted.
If this turns into a 2v2 of any kind, TSM would come out on top, which is why Jesiz has to run away. However, Gilius gets a little bit caught.
Wards everywhere, and they're going to be able to give some protection to Gilius. He's forced to flash over the wall. Tough game for him. He is getting warded out everywhere.
It's going to be a tough series. He just got thrown into the World Championship, obviously, and he is struggling a little bit here.
even the wards they're placing on the top side that aren't seeing Gilius is alerting TSM of where he is on the map. If he hasn't crossed the top side, then he's in the bottom. Let's make a gank here. They're using everything to their advantage, and every lane seems to have a good one of that.
Bjergsen is completely honed in right now as well, and because Amazing is just setting up camp right there, there's nothing SK can really do to come back here unless Bjergsen makes a mistake. He's completely landing all the skill shots, keeping the pressure up, and the ward coverage is immaculate around where he is right now.
Yeah, completely manhandled. There is a ward spotting this one. They know that this dragon is going down. I don't think they're going to do anything about it other than get a timer. You see SK sneaking in, but immediately the call's been given back away. You're never going to get close to this one. Gilius was not there. So, first dragon, big objective for TSM, gives them a fairly substantial gold lead just 12 minutes into this game.
They're playing very well, very controlled, and it's kind of the way TSM always wants to play. They focus around Bjergsen so he can be a playmaker late game. And the biggest thing here is their bottom lane is actually winning.
A lot of praises sung towards Team SoloMid as they were boot camping a bit. Lustboy having great play throughout all that practice. And TSM has definitely changed a few things about their gameplay. Getting that aggressive early start, and it's really paying off. 13 minutes onto this one. Not much pressure from Gilius in this bottom lane, and CandyPanda and nRated have been at that turret the majority of the time.
Jesiz absolutely struggled in this mid lane, still yet to get his hands on the blue buff. Nearly 30 CS behind on Bjergsen. Absolutely has been the focus, and why not? It's well known that he is the weak point of SK Gaming in that mid lane, completely leaving the top lane alone. Dyrus and Freddy have been on the island untouched, and you know, it's a gigantic tank versus a gigantic tank, so no surprises.
And we can see the overall gold lead here being about 2.5 thousand. 1,200 of that is in the mid lane. So it is just them absolutely picking on Jesiz right now. And I think they're just going to continue this. There's nothing drastic that TSM needs to do. They need to continue to set up some ganks, obviously on Jesiz. If they push him back far enough, then Bjergsen can begin roaming, but they're really just trying to work from the mid lane outwards towards the rest of the map.
And Jesiz is so piecing together his build. His spike will be so far away, trying to get a few items in there, and then Bjergsen coming out so strong already has to put in that Seeker's Arm Guard. TSM once again towards the blue. Gilius able to figure it out. Looks like they get away nice and clean.
This could well be the first claps we see. And the first big team fight, honestly. This blue buff, is it worth fighting over? TSM, little unsure on this one. They're buying time instead for the mid lane. They are going to give this one up. That means, or are they? Amazing tries to land it sneakily at the end there. Trying to force a smite, I think, from Gilius. They did use it. Jesiz gets the blue though.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. There's still a lot of pressure lost there by SK just to secure their blue buff. One thing I will say is even though SK's not buying a whole bunch of wards, they got pretty good value in the wards they are actually buying.
Uh-oh, indeed. Everybody swarming the top lane here. Freddy using his ultimate early on this one, so it's going to be wearing off. Flashes it. They're getting what they want. Blocking the business there as he gets out.
Buys time in the mid lane though. We'll see whether they can push out or whether they're going to get punished for it. That's the question. Crescendo on the WildTurtle. He's going to get locked up, but is it enough? Great disengage from Lustboy. The wave, the Aqua Prison, everything lands, and TSM just walk away.
Pretty sweet move there by nRated using Crescendo from the Fog of War though. Definitely catching WildTurtle a little bit out of position, but they're able to get out thanks to the fantastic play from Lustboy.
As we said, getting those praises sung, and he's showing it here on the stage as well, keeping consistent play up. That gold lead isn't getting much farther away, so SK has been able to stave off the advantage TSM has now, but Amazing is getting everything. Bjergsen's not needing blue buffs. He is getting big. Level 10 to Gilius' 9, still getting warded out in his jungle. TSM on a good path right now.
One thing that has actually worked well for Jesiz is the fact that he's built into this. You just saw there, while he did get a little bit of damage on him from Bjergsen, it didn't do as much this time. He's got them Seeker's Arms Guard. It has delayed his build. You can see he hasn't got that Athenes yet, but he's built correctly. Hasn't managed to stick to his path, built against what he needs. And it is going to be a simple game of delaying for SK Gaming, honestly. They need to get a lot of items on Jesiz, but the fact is Bjergsen is going to have those 2 critical items before he gets there.
And I feel like Freddy is just hoping he has enough armor to withstand a late game WildTurtle. As far as TSM goes, especially with the Trinity Force Alistair, they are a full attack damage team. So armor stacking actually will work very well against them. if they can get to reasonable levels of gold difference. At the moment, TSM is still outpacing them a little too quickly, but if this was an even gold game late and SK itemized appropriately with a lot of armor, they would actually have an item edge in that sense because their defensive items would be much more efficient.
Such a spike right now coming in for Team SoloMid. Gilius gets hit up. That's just the Shiv and the Q. A little bit of pain being delivered there. That can also come from WildTurtle. These guys far and ahead on items, a minute on Dragon, and they're going to look to pressure that quite nicely. Forced to back off. Gilius heads back to the jungle. Looks like he's cleaning up what he can. Still warded out on the top side. They are not making it easy for the newcomer.
I can't tell whether that was gutsy reaction from Gilius to not flash there or simple shock. It was just like, I've just lost half my hit points, guys. I don't know what happened.
He had Orianna right behind him, so obviously Bjergsen was just being a little bit safe. It was still real scary, though. Sightstone on Lee Sin very early as well. Lizard Elder, for a second I thought it was a Sightstone Kha'Zix, but no, that's just a normal build for me.
Gilius can't get next to a brush without getting hit. Jesiz, Bjergsen getting his own ultimate in. Oh, the Sonic Wave doesn't quite hit, but the safeguard comes in. He cleans it up with the last Q.
What a slick move there by TSM. I thought they were leaving him a little bit extra alive, knowing he'd still have a shockwave to suck him back in. Amazing, making it out just in the nick of time, barely taking any damage.
Oh, Crescendo does not land this time around, and that's the Aqua Prism followed by the bubble. Brilliant play, but then Raiden gets away. WildTurtle not going to get turned around. CandyPanda wants to pursue, but Amazing's coming in around the side. Candy gets back up towards him, comes around the backside and ready. Sonic Wave doesn't land. No reactions. Bjergsen comes in. Dyrus teleports in.
They are so dead.
5-man pylon in the bottom. SK Gaming in all sorts of trouble. Freddy comes down to join the party, but he's simply just another death for TSM. That's a double for WildTurtle. 3 for 0. Fantastic play by TSM.
Sometimes when you're under a turret, you just have to give up. At that point, the teleport was completely wasted. TSM had a monstrous advantage. There was no escape, and SK just makes matters worse.
Wow! Gilius going down. Jesiz in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the cow comes in to give him the what for. Picking up the dragon. This train is rolling down the tracks way too quick for SK.
Something about TSM games. They play slow, they play slow, and then they explode. Seemingly kills all around the map. Obviously, this one was a crazy, crazy fight. The shield surprising WildTurtle at the last second, getting him low, but the collapse from TSM was just fantastic. Amazing gets in behind them. Almost the fact that he was missing these spells just made matters worse because it delayed the inevitable. Warding to allow Dyrus with the turret dive. Freddy, really bad teleport right there. Did not even have his ultimate, just teleported into dive. A 5-man dive with the damage reduction from an Alistair is easy pickings there for TSM.
And honestly, I completely question why on earth they decided to engage Bjergsen back in that mid lane. When Gilius came back in, they already saw the damage he was doing. There's simply not enough ability power for Jesiz to put that shield on and return the damage back to Bjergsen. Simple, easy double kill for him. And now, when a Yasuo is at 4-0-2, you have big problems.
And Bjergsen as well, giving the shot caller a lead in the game. Top lane indeed, trying to lock down once more onto Freddy. He should be all right on this one, backing off. Like you said, Jat, sometimes you got to leave that turret.
This turned into a stomp. Very quickly. 9,000 gold at 20 minutes.
They took advantage of Gilius. They did.
That's not a goalie to come back. They took advantage of everyone.
This is true.
On SK, it really feels like the bottom lane stood true. Freddy, he was trying to pull a stalemate lane, but he could not control Dyrus's roam. And every member of TSM has contributed. No one more than Bjergsen though.
Good lord, Freddy in trouble. He's going down. Flash is out, but that's not going to be enough. You cannot survive the damage that Bjergsen has. And that's with a Randian Zoman Giant Spell and a Chain Vest. He still gets shredded. Dyrus turning on towards CandyPanda. 2v1. Has he got the damage? I think CandyPanda must have gone deep on towards the tower to have this much damage.
He's got that Triforce move speed.
He's still going.
There's so much that the other team can do with this. Dyrus is holding CandyPanda and nRated hostage right now as TSM runs amok on the map.
Oh, Gilius going down. WildTurtle finds himself a target. Dyrus bullies out two. Both CandyPanda and nRated. Middle lane is wide open. It's only Jesiz that's holding ground, and Bjergsen fancies it. Maybe he's going to sniff for it. No, early Baron.
Why not? Why not? Everything's going on for them. 10,000 gold lead. They built a Bloodthirster on Yasuo, which you've seen from a few players, actually. I'll let the analyst desk cover that one because I want them to talk about Bloodthirster on Yasuo. More lifesteal, a little bit of a shield, less solo potential, but this is just TSM turning scrim results into absolute domination.
That's a really good way to put it. We're at the playoffs. Reginald said, play it like a scrim. Let's just see this one more time.
Yeah, Gilius,
What the hell was he thinking?
you made a big mistake right there. WildTurtle is really strong. Did he even evolve? That's just
Forcing yourself to
that's a
make
tilt
plays.
play. I mean, that's a Kha'Zix that has evolved his spikes and his leap, trying to solo and isolate a target. Maybe if he maxed and evolved Q, maybe then he could take down WildTurtle. If not, he has no chance.
And it's going to get harder and harder. 3 static shifts across the board. Every lane is going to be pushing at max speed right now. And TSM is not going to be stopping. SK finally putting everything back into the middle. Freddy still loves to go for the 1-4, so he's going to try and keep Dyrus at bay. But it's only going to be too long. It's not going to be too long before TSM's right in the base.
Could we legitimately be seeing the first time TSM make it out of a group stage at Worlds? They are looking strong here, honestly.
Not getting too far ahead.
No doubt about it. Well, technically you could argue they were in the quarterfinals at Season 2, but that's because they got a direct seed there. TSM, though, legitimately have come to this World Championships with the best chance they've ever had, and we're hearing absolutely great things about them from scrims.
They have 2 games today as well. There's 3 different
That's
teams
right.
in their group. TPA, they will not play today. Starhorn Royal Club, they will. And they're going to have a lot of momentum after this one because they have put on a spectacular performance here. Just looking for more. They got 3 static shivs. They got a 13,000 gold lead. Make that 13,500. And there's no reason for them to stop here.
It's going up. They're definitely going to need the Swiss bank soon on this one. Inhibitor turret's going to be going down. 24 minutes. We're coming up. Out of the game. It could be SK going for broke here. They do deter Team SoloMid just a little bit. And Freddy calls himself in. Here we go. The fight. Turtle gets hit up. Will he be able to keep it going? Everybody's jumping in and going for broke this time. Gilius gets hit up. Thrown down in the box. And they go for Freddy towards the fountain. He's going to go down. They're aced in their base at 23.5 minutes. And the surrender for Game 2 at World's Group Stages comes in from SK. Team SoloMid takes the game 15-1.
What a way to start their journey towards the World Championship. Obviously, they're playing against a wounded SK Gaming that was not together in this one. But they definitely knew how to finish that time. That is the fastest, most decisive game I have probably seen from TSM since they formed this roster for sure. And to do it on the world stage in their first game is spectacular.
You gotta think, Bjergsen, we talked about him, is the pressure on him, the shot caller, the man of the moment for TSM, and by God did he perform on Yasuo this early on. From the very get-go, he looked like a man on a mission.
I don't even know how to finish this one because the game got out of hand so quickly. We were like 14, 15 minutes in. SK was doing all right, you know. They were just hanging around thinking maybe Mundo can get to a point, and then it was over.
I gotta focus on the point that TSM adapted to that misplay so quickly. Amazing went in, and they didn't do it ever again. They didn't make a wrong call after that. They were in the game, and they were ready to just take the win. Knowing they had the advantage, TSM played as they usually do. Loco Doco coming around, the team says the 6th player of the team, and he's been paying off for him.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff. TSM coming in strong in the first game of Group B.
The game was so fast. That was a 24-minute game. You don't see games that fast really anymore happen. And sure, SK surrendered, but that's because their Nexus was probably going to die. They'd just been completely aced inside of their base.
I would say they've done it to Alliance as well. They've had that against them. 24 minutes, boom, done. Thank you very much. We've had to give up the ghost. They've done it themselves. They've had some fast games, but we talked about the lane phase. We talked about how SK will start slow, and TSM coming into this one clearly well aware of that fact and putting the pressure points where it was needed. You know, you got to talk about the bottom lane. A lot of questions were on WildTurtle coming into this game, but with Lustboy alongside him, the safety net is there. And clearly, you know, the harness is strong with that one because there was a lot of big disengages coming out from Lustboy.
The bottom lane played good, not great. The reason the WildTurtle was able to come out 5-0-3 is because Bjergsen played great.
And you got to think, you know, coming against Starhorn later on today against Uzi, it's a big, big question mark.
I can't wait. That's going to be the last game of the day, Game 6. And if we continue having 23-minute games.
Could be a quick day.
Pretty soon.
So here's the thing. Obviously, Team SoloMid not caught in a trap game. They did what they wanted, but that was a great point. They just went in and made a composition. Can they do that against Royal Club, or are they going to be forced to back and forth with those picks and bans?
I don't think so. That composition was a little bit too perfect for TSM. Everyone having knock-up synergy with Bjergsen, being able to set up mid-lane ganks that could not be countered by SK. They got absolutely everything. Lustboy got to play Nami, right?
Yeah.
Please, someone. You know, they're not even using early picks on it.
It was like
got it late.
history repeats itself in the beginning of the game. Just another generation of Reginald and having Odd One in his back pocket to start off a game.
Well, so should we talk about Dyrus in that top lane? Because, you know, it was a fairly solid game. Didn't really get too much involvement, but his teleport was the one that counted when they piled down the bottom lane.
He played like Dyrus when Dyrus plays well. You don't really notice him until he's winning the game for you, right? Like, he was withstanding a Mundo in lane, and then he made a great play mid, he made a great play bottom, and that really catapulted the game.
That's right. All right, so we're going to send it over to Shox right now, who's on stage for a word with TSM's Bjergsen.
Thank you very much, Riv. First off, congratulations, Bjergsen. There is not much more that you can hope for getting a first game like that here at the World Championship. Talk me through the strategy, very much focusing on your mid lane in the beginning.
It was just pretty much how the game or the picks worked out. We weren't expecting them to give us all these power picks like Nami on Lustboy, we have Alistar, we got Lee Sin on Amazing. We just got all these really good comfort champions and all these champions that these players are basically known for, and it just led into a really good comp overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And Reggie was saying how you guys would have strong laners. You got all of those. And then the team synergy for SK was praised by Reginald, but you guys didn't even have to deal with that. Tell me how the game snowballed out of control.
It was just pretty much the way the lane was set up mid. We managed to get a gank off, and I think as soon as you get a kill on a stage like this, everyone just feels like you're in control and you know exactly what to do and you're just on point. And I feel like as soon as you get just a couple kills, everyone knows what to do, everyone's on the same page, and everyone feels like this is where we need to go and that we're the better team.
Well, it is a fantastic start for you guys in this group. Talk me through your thoughts on the group overall. Great first game. Do you think SK won't be a bother for you guys anymore, and who will be?
I think for this group specifically, it's definitely going to be Stormheart and Royal. They're kind of like a weird team. We haven't been able to get that much other than what they've just been playing in the own scene. But I think they're just a really strong team, and they have a lot of specific picks that they play really well, and we need to be ready for that. And it's not something we've been able to practice against.
Well, then let's look forward to that game, because it is, of course, the last game of the day here versus Starhorn Royal Club, and going up against a Chinese mid laner, a wholly different style. How are you feeling going into that?
I've been playing against Wei Zhao in NA for a while, and he's just a great player. So I'm ready for a lot of different things, and I've heard that Chinese players they can play a lot of different mids, they can be very versatile, and I can't wait to play against their aggression.
I can't wait to see what you pull out. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thanks.
All right, and now we're going to head back over to the guys at the desk.
Thank you very much, and what a dominant performance from Bjergsen with the aid of amazing camping out that middle lane throughout the early stages of the game. Truthfully, TSM had SK's number through the entirety of that match, all the way back to picks and bans. And the early game, what was your thoughts on the Sona pickup for nRated, knowing Brown was open, and how SK handled the laning phase?
Yeah, looking at what point, at the end of the draft, basically, SK had one pick left, and they knew they were going to play Lucian because that was their early pick into Tristana Nami, and they went for Sona. And I really disagree with that. I feel Sona is just an inferior version of Nami, especially when it comes to poking. You'll get out sustain eventually. Thresh would have been better. Braum would have been better. Just anything with some aggressive play, because you need to shut that Tristana lane down. There is this stereotype that Tristana do so well at playoffs and worlds for some reason, but she can be beaten. She can be beaten by Lucian in lane, but you need to play the lane correctly. And maybe SK was just, has the jitters coming first world game, play passive. But if you want to play passive, don't pick Lucian.
I do want to kind of push against you a little bit on the Sona point. I think Sona is great. Actually, if the lane were normal and not misplayed, I think Sona Lucian would have won that fight, and I think Sona does just fine against Nami. I realize you're the better support player than me, but from what I've seen of League of Legends, I think Sona deserves more respect than you're giving her, but that as it may. I do think, though, the game kind of played out as you expect. TSM have better individual players, amazing, obviously a better jungler than Gilius. Gilius also not a very aggressive jungler in the first place. I mean, this was a guy who was getting out-jungled in his promotion relegation match against Millennium, and that's a tough mark to beat then when you're up against guys like Insec in your group.
Yeah.
I think a key point in this game happened to be that there is just no synergy between the mid lane and jungle. Obviously, you're putting in a substitute, and they failed to recognize that the entire team comp of TSM revolves around Yasuo and getting Yasuo far ahead. So Kha'Zix was basically just lounging around mid lane instead of making his own thing happen, try to create pressure elsewhere and force TSM to react. Instead, we saw him just walk behind Jesiz the entire time, just be like, okay, I'm waiting for Lee Sin to come around. Where's Lee Sin? Lee Sin never shows up because he's not going to show up in the 1v2 scenario. And he had multiple opportunities to get better objective control when they committed to making dives on Mundo, and it just never happened.
Not only that, but to really jungle here at the world level, you have to have a lot of synergy with your team, because the problem really was that amazing. He had those misplays. He kind of gave up the double buffs when he was trying to make the plays, but what he did really well was that he was playing always on the side of the map with the pressure, right? And Gilius looked a bit lost. He was constantly in the wrong side of the jungle, getting counter-jungled, and it was just kind of a disaster. He had zero presence in that game.
What do you mean playing on the side of the map with pressure? Just for the clarification.
Yeah, well, when the lanes are pushing up, so let's say you're pushed up into the top and middle side, or you've got a preferable matchup where, for example, in the Dyrus roam coming down after they had pressed up into top, and when they had that Yasuo who was getting fed in the mid lane, go into the enemy's red buff in that circumstance if you're on the blue side and try and control the top side of the map in that circumstance. They got the deep wards down, and then you can punish so hard off of that.
See, TSM was capitalizing on mistakes. SK wasn't doing so. At one point, the desk here pointed out, I actually didn't even see it myself until you guys called it out, that Gilius could have went for a red buff. Instead, they went for the tower push. Same for bottom. Going back to that laning phase, I went back and watched the first like 4 or 5 minutes of that laning phase, and SK they gave TSM the push. They got outpoked. All their poke led up to just Nami out sustaining it anyways, and they didn't play aggressive enough. And if you don't play aggressive enough, you can't capitalize on the mistakes, and then you'll just die just a slow death, and eventually Bjergsen will become too big.
Well, very one-sided game. We will have to take a step back and talk about TSM's power later in the day. But coming up next, 2 teams will be making their first appearance at Worlds as Darker Passage from Turkey faces AHQ Esports Club. We'll be taking a quick look at some of the teams and players here. Are the Turkish champions? They are watching their matches from that practice room. We need to see how they step up against stronger opposition. AHQ, they are doing the same. It's quite focused, calm looks on their faces. Guys, we will be moving to a short break very, very shortly. When we are back, we'll return with that match.
The trouble. Freddy comes down to join the party, but he's simply just another death for TSM. And SK just makes matters worse.
Wow! Gilius going down. Jesiz in the wrong place at the wrong time. Turtle gets hit up. Will he be able to keep it going? Everybody's jumping in and going for broke this time. Gilius gets hit up, thrown down in the box, and they go for Freddy towards the fountain.